Hello and welcome to the analysis of the Hindu newspaper dated March 5th, 2023. In this video, we are going to talk about three important newspaper articles which we have taken from the Hindu newspaper dated March 5th, and they are going to be very important, very significant for the civil services examination. So without any further delay, let's start with the first important newspaper article. Now, this particular newspaper article talks about the deep sea missions of China, right? China is our neighbor, and deep sea missions by it are a big problem for us. We also have our deep sea missions. We are going to talk about that as well. But before that, we'll talk about the China's deep sea missions and what are its plans ahead. Now, these kinds of newspaper articles are important for the GS paper too, that is government policies and interventions for development in various sectors and issues arising out of their design and implementation. And it is also important for understanding the international relations. That is why we are going to understand the context of it, and then we will talk about the China's deep sea missions, and then we will talk about the Indian deep sea mission, right? So now it is usually the sightings of the Chinese military latest warships which have grabbed a lot of attention in the South China Sea because of many of the reasons due to the security concerns of the neighbors. Now the less noticed are the departures of the Explorer 2. Now Explorer 2 is what? It is a vessel which carries out the deep sea missions. It is a green and white vessel that if passes through, it is very remarkable, right? So departing from Sanyas, Sanya is basically an island of China, or it is a part of China. Now Sanyas Institute of Deep Sea Science and Engineering vessel has made increasingly frequent forays into some of the least explored parts of the world's oceans, carrying with it one of the most advanced deep sea submersibles, as well as China's ambition to dominate the still evolving yet highly competitive field of deep sea exploration. Now, the researchers at the IDSSE of China say their main mission is understanding what lies at the depths of the little understood ocean trenches, because ocean trenches are so deep, and that is why lot of exploration has not been done. We have not figured out whether there are minerals present in the seabed as well. So we do not know a lot about it, and China is very keen towards knowing what lies in the deep sea trenches, right? So the work of the deep sea research does, however, also carry the promise of unlocking untold commercial riches. For example, if you can figure out that the seabed has copper, gold, minerals, and rare earth material elements, then it is going to be a major boom for your country. And that is why with China, India has also a deep sea mission. Now, this particular deep sea mission is a mission mode project to support the blue economy initiatives of the government of India, and Ministry of Earth and Sciences is the nodal ministry implementing this particular ambitious mission. And the aim of this mission is to explore deep ocean for resources and develop sea technologies for sustainable use of the ocean resources. We are also looking into the ocean resources, whatever the ocean has to offer. Now, this particular mission, that is the deep sea mission, has six major components. We are going to talk about each of the component in very detail. So listen it to very carefully, because it is going to be very important. Now, the first component is the development of technologies for deep sea mining and manned submersible. So a manned submersible will be developed to carry 3 people to a depth of 6,000 meters in the ocean with a suite of scientific sensors and tools, and only a few countries have acquired this particular technology. And this becomes very significant. And apart from it, we are also going to develop an integrated mining system, and it is going to mine polymetallic nodules which are important for us, and it is going to be mined from 6,000 meters depth in the central Indian Ocean. Now this component will help the blue economy priority area of exploring and harnessing of the deep sea minerals and energy, right? So now let's talk about the second component. So the second component is the development of climate change advisory services, because oceans contribute to a lot of seasonal changes, and that is why we are going to study the oceans in detail with this deep sea mission. Third component is to create awareness amongst the public, students, academicians, and user communities about the various fields of earth science, as well as on the achievements and services rendered by the Ministry of Earth sciences. Let's now talk about the fourth component. Fourth component is the technological innovations for exploration and conservation of the deep sea biodiversity. Now, this deep sea biodiversity, everything, the fishes and the microbes, all of these flora, fauna, whatever is present in there in the deep sea trenches, these are very important for us, and that is why the conservation of them becomes also very important for the deep sea mission of India. Now let's talk about the next component. Next component is deep ocean survey and exploration. Now the primary objective of this component is to explore and identify potential sites of multi-metal, hydrothermal sulfides, mineralization along the Indian Ocean mid-oceanic regions, and this component will additionally support the blue economy priority areas of deep sea exploration of the ocean resources, right? And the next component is the energy and freshwater from the ocean is very important. So studies and detailed engineering design for the offshore ocean thermal energy conversion, that is OTEC, powered desalinization plants are envisaged in this proof of concept proposal. And this component will support the blue economy priority areas of the offshore energy development. The last component now we have is the advanced marine station for ocean biology. Now this component is aimed at development of human capacity and enterprise in ocean biology and engineering, and this component will translate research into industrial application and product development through an on-site business incubator facilities, right? So this component will support the blue economy priority area of marine biology, blue trade and blue manufacturing, right? So it covers the part of industrial application, right? So these are the six components which are present in the deep sea mission. Let's now talk about the significance of this particular mission. Now the technologies required for deep sea mining have strategic implications and are not commercially available, and hence attempts will be made to indigenize technologies by collaborating with the leading institutes and the private industries. And a research vessel for the deep ocean exploration would be built in a Indian shipyard, which would create employment opportunities. So employment opportunities are going to increase with this particular deep sea mission, because this mission is also directed towards capacity development in marine biology, which will provide job opportunities in Indian industries. Now, in addition, design, development, and fabrication of the specialized equipments will also generate the jobs for the MSMEs as well as the startups. So this is the significance of this particular deep sea mission. We have talked about this particular deep sea mission of India. We have also talked about what are the major happenings in the China regarding the deep sea mission. Their deep sea mission, we have also talked about it. So this is it regarding this particular newspaper article. Let's now head to the next important newspaper article. Now, this particular newspaper article talks about a new study which finds that influenza virus might have marine origin with fish as early host, right? Now, these kinds of newspaper articles become important for the GS paper 2, that is issues related to health, because influenza causes a lot of problems in the human respiratory tract. Let's first understand the context of it, and then we will talk about the influenza, right? So a new study posted as a preprint, that is preprint means that it is not peer reviewed at this particular point of time, it is to be reviewed by the peers, and then it will become more solid. Now this particular preprint in the bio RSV has found that order articular virilis, which includes influenza virus, first emerged in aquatic ecosystems, and fish might have been the earliest host of the influenza virus. Now the study found that invertebrates rather than fish might have likely been amongst the first host of the influenza virus. This is the particular study or the findings of the study, that the fish might be the first host of the influenza virus, and through the fish it has been transferred to other people, other animals, and then to the humans, right? So what exactly is this influenza virus? So influenza is basically a viral infection that attacks the respiratory tract, that is nose, throat and lungs, and is commonly called the flu. Now the symptoms include fever, chills, muscle aches, cough, congestion, runny nose, headaches and fatigue, right? So these are some of the symptoms. Let's now talk about how can we treat this particular influenza. Now flu is primarily treated with the rest and fluid intake to allow the body to fight the infection on its own. Now, the paracetamol may help cure the symptoms, but non-steroidal uh, anti-inflammatory drugs, that is the NSAIDs, should be avoided, and annual vaccine can help prevent the flu and limit its complications. Now, young children, older adults, pregnant women, and people with chronic disease or weak immune system are at a high risk of the influenza. So, if you are a healthy individual, then you do not carry any kind of risk to get affected by the influenza, right? So, this is it regarding the influenza. Let's now talk about the next important newspaper article. Now, this particular newspaper article becomes very important because it talks about the forest rights. What are the rights of the tribals, and what is the tussle going on between the NCST, that is National Commission for Scheduled Tribes, as well as the Forest Ministry, right? Now, these kinds of newspaper articles are important for the GS paper too, that is government policies and intervention in various sectors and issues arising out of their implementation, right? So after the NCST invoked its constitutional power to requisition detailed Forest Rights Act implementation reports from the Supreme Court, the registrars has ordered the release of the documents to the NCST, and the ST Commission is caught in a row with the Union Environment Ministry over the Forest Conservation Rule, that is FCR 2022. Now the row is over the potential violation of the provisions enshrined in the Scheduled Tribes and other forest dwellers recognition of the Forest Rights Act 2006, dubbed as the Forest Rights Act. Now this becomes the main contention, that is the Forest Rights Act. So the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, that is MOEFCC, in June 2022 notified the Forest Conservation Rules, that is 2022, which prescribed the mechanism for diversion of forest lands for non-forest purposes. This becomes the problem. These amended rules have omitted a clause that explicitly required any proposal to mandatorily have the consent of the local tribes people and other traditional forest dwellers. Now, the consent of the local tribes and people is not required. Now, this omits this particular clause. This becomes the main problem because the rights of the forest people are getting violated. So the FCR 2022 has allowed entities to go for the consent after stage 1 or even after stage 2 clearance, and according to the FRA 2006, in case of a dispute over the forest land, precedence has to be given to the rights of the STs and the OTFDs over any other party. Now, this has been omitted in the new rules of the 2022. Now, in September 2022, NCST chairperson Harsh Chauhan shot off a letter to the Environment Minister Bhupendra Yadav highlighting the potential consequences of the FCR, that is the Forest Rules of 2022, recommending that they be put on the hold and previous rules which provided for the consent clause be strengthened. So the consent clause is not being strengthened, it is being omitted. Now the NCST wants that these consent clause must be strengthened, and the ST panel argued that the previous versions of the rules provided a legal space for ensuring completion of the process for recognition and vesting of rights under the FRA in areas where forests are being diverted. Now, the ST Commission noted that it made little sense to take the consent of the tribals and forest dwellers after an applicant had got stage 1 clearance. So in stage 1 clearance itself, you need to get the consent of the tribals and the forest dwellers. If the stage 1 is cleared and if you are taking the consent in the stage 2, it doesn't make a lot of sense according to the NCST, and by then the applicant would be invested in the project and would then have the incentive to pursue the state governments or union territories to divert the land at the earliest. And further, the NCST found that even under the old rules, FRA compliance was in trouble, and it said currently nearly 25,000 to 30,000 hectares of the forest lands was being diverted every year towards the non-forest purposes. And it cited a study by the Center for Environment and Development (ATRI) to note that out of 128 applications for the forest diversion for mining, over 100 have been processed between 2009 and 2018, which becomes a main problem. It means that the consent of the tribals is not taken into much of the consideration regarding it. And it also added that 74 proposal at stage 2 approval, 46 at stage 1 approval in principle, with just 5 rejected and 4 closed for other reasons. And none of the rejections was for non-compliance of the FRA. Now the study also found that 14 of these cases have been cleared with an FRA compliance report, despite this being far from the ground reality. Now, Mr. Yadav, who is basically the NCST chairman, wrote back. Sorry, Mr. Yadav, who is the environment minister, right? He wrote back to the NCST chief, insisting that the FCR 2022 does not violate any provisions granting land rights to the STs and OTFDs, right? So this is the main contention which is going on, or this is the main tension which is going on between the NCST and the environment ministry regarding the FRA rules, Forest Rights Act rules, or the FCR rules, which were implemented in the 2022, which somewhat loosens the consent laws for the tribals. You need not to take the consent in the stage 1, which becomes the main problem, right? So this is it regarding this particular newspaper article, and this is it for the day. Thank you from my side. Do like and share the video and subscribe to this channel. Have a good day. Bye.